welcome Dr. Murali Krishna garu. Please take over the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Gauri Shankar ji. Today's good morning to all of you. Today's session we'll be discussing. I've been asked by the on critical thinking, and how it is connected to many aspects of our life, especially in research areas and also language research. I would like to share the screen. I was sharing it, but I don't know what happened. Yeah. Yeah. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. Thank you. So the topic for today's morning session is critical thinking in language research. Basically, we would I would begin my lecture by talking about what is critical thinking and how it is related to many aspects of our lives, and also in research areas, and in the context of language research, a few points. To begin with, how do we understand critical thinking? Critical thinking, basically, the American philosopher and educator John Dewey, 1910, he coined this term critical thinking, and whereby he had in his mind a scientific attitude on the part of learners, on the part of researchers, a scientific mind that is above prejudices, that is above biases, and that also was equipped with reflection, the ability to reflect on the experience, on the data, and do many other related things. We'll also see what these sub-skills are. So I began this slide by that small quote: critical thinking is looked at as the awakening of the intellect to the study of itself, because somewhere it is also a study of mind. It is how you organize things and how you understand and take in the phenomenal world around you. And it can be defined as a process of conceptualizing. You conceptualize what you see. How do you we all understand things, because somewhere in our minds we have taken the information as a concept, as a category of information. Then, of course, we also do the analysis part. Once you conceptualize, you are trying to understand, analyze its components, analyze its different, the entire fiber of that concept. And then once you are successful in analyzing, conceptualizing, followed by analyzing, you also, there is a temptation in human nature to apply to something more tangible, something that is more practical, and maybe I would say utilitarian also. So conceptualizing followed by analysis of the concept, and also we yield to the temptation of trying to apply that understanding, that something utilitarian, something beneficial to us. And then it also can be seen as synthesizing the whatever available information we have gathered, and arriving at new set of information, new insights. So basically, you're trying to uh, synergize the different aspects of the information, the concept that you have taken in, you have analyzed, and you're trying to apply. And then you're also trying to synthesize this data, this information, in order to arrive at a fresh set of information, of new information. So how does it go about critical? We all have been doing critical thinking. And when you look at the process of what you have been doing in different ways and different measures, it always entails observation. We observe. Keen observation is one of the important prerequisites for good critical thinking, a mind that is inclined to think critically. So good observation skills, and then experience what is around. When you talk in terms of experience, not only understanding, but the emotion comes, the feeling comes, and a holistic kind of interaction with that phenomenon that you have observed that happens. So it is also, you gather information through observation, sometimes through direct experience, and you also gather information, as I said, through reflection. And because it's a scientific skill, critical thinking skills, you also reason out. You try and stay above uh, the baggage that you are carrying, the kind of prejudices, the kind of biases that you are carrying with you. So you are also rational, you are indulging, you're using, you're allowing reasoning to play itself. So these are the ways in which critical thinking can happen with all of us. Now, it can also be seen as a process that challenges an individual. It is especially when there is a need to be objective, when there is a need to be scientific, when there's a need to be very, very observational in your attitude. It challenges an individual to reflect, and then based on that, you also challenges you to interpret what you have identified, the data that you have gathered, and you also are challenged to evaluate, and then there's a final kind of a judgment that takes place. It need not be in this order, but anything can happen to an individual who is challenged by the phenomenon, by information around. So critical thinking sets in, and you begin reflecting, you begin interpreting, you begin evaluating, you begin judging. So there's no logical order there. It can happen any which way. And then based on this process that we are going through, we also make certain assumptions, certain certain conclusions, and then we also infer. Certain insights, certain implications are also understood, and then this process enables us in a way to communicate effectively with our surroundings, with other participants, with other fellow participants, fellow speakers. And then this has a bearing on your ability to solve problems, on your ability to resolve issues, find solutions to very easy or naughty or difficult problems, whatever the nature of the problem be, to come up with solutions. So when we actually come up with a solution, behind that moment of solving it, behind the moment of solution to that problem, we would have actually fast tracked all these sub skills through a prolonged in a jiffy, or maybe we would have taken time, labored through these processes, and then come to a conclusion to the about the problem and how do you go about solving this. So it can be a fast track kind of a rush to problem solving, wherein you gloss over the sub skills. It's almost like you have internalized the sub skills. Sometimes you have to labor through these different parts of the problem solving process and the critical thinking process. And as I said earlier, it forms part of everybody and every part of everyday life. We all do critical thinking in some way or other, many times of the day, and or many times of our lives. Maybe many of us would realize that, and some of us won't realize that, but it happens. And it is closely connected with, because you are coming out new information, new ways to apply, interpret, also very closely connected to your creative talents, your creative information, your creative abilities also. Yeah, some more information on critical thinking. Basically, it became popular in the middle of 20th century, 1950, 1960s, like that. But it was 1987, a National Council for Excellence defined it as follows, and I quote, the intellectually disciplined process. Critical thinking is the intellectually disciplined process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and or maybe information gathered. I request all of you to switch off your mobiles or be on silent mode because we are hearing some music. So the intellectually disciplined process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, or evaluating information gathered from or generated by our observation, by our experience, by our reflection, reasoning, or by communication also, as a guide to belief, to ideas and action. In its exemplary form, it is based on universal intellectual values that transcend subject matter divisions: clarity, accuracy, precision, consistency, relevance, sound evidence, good reasons, depth, breadth, and fairness are all part of this process, this very important skill called critical thinking. So this is a definition given by the National Council for Excellence in critical thinking. It's a global organization based in the US. And we can't but agree with this. We can't much disagree with this kind of understanding of critical thinking, because that is how we've also been initiated into this skill by the circumstances of our birth, by the circumstances of our growth, by also by a precise method of schooling or training that we have undergone. So critical thinking involves making assumptions, drawing conclusions, understanding implications, accounting for diverse and varying viewpoints and perspectives. So this particular point, accounting for diverse and varying viewpoints and perspectives, is a very good, is a very important point, because critical thinking normally should not make you unidimensional. It should not make you one monotonous and one kind of a idea which dominates a person. It will never be like that. It will accept, it will account for diverse viewpoints, varying viewpoints, and different perspectives. So it promotes that kind of an inclusive acceptance of divergent views, of differing views, and accommodating diversity of opinions. So because the very process of critical thinking is such that you would have maintained fairness, you would have maintained reasoning, you would have maintained, you would have fought the temptation of bias, you would have fought the temptation of being very prejudiced. So it makes you more inclusive of diverse viewpoints. So because I'm talking about fairness, I'm talking about being reasonable and also accepting diverse viewpoints, I thought I'll share this picture with you. Cheers to all the people who can change their minds when presented with information that contradicts their beliefs. Now, this is a very important aspect of critical thinking, that you are willing to change your mind um, when you are presented with information that is contrary to your pre-given beliefs, to the kind of beliefs and ideologies that you would have grown up with. So that is one refreshing and a scientific thing, very progressive thing that happens through the process of critical thinking. This is again very important here. We must understand that as a concept, critical thinking has been present throughout the history of human intelligence. Um, there are so many theories about our beginnings of human lives, how it all began. The show is going on, but how did the show start? You have so many theories explaining the coming of life on the planet. How did the planets? So we have some evidence. We have some kind of a understanding through our own subjects about how the first our ancestors could have survived by using their evolving intelligence, by using their growing skills. So it's firmly believed that they also exercised critical thinking to some extent. It has been there throughout the history of intelligence, human intelligence, and I'll share this with you. In this particular slide, you have three images. The first on your left is with a question mark there. This one of our ancestors is in the wild, is in the jungle. He is gathering information. He's exposed to so much of phenomena around him. There's information. He's questioning that information. He's trying to understand, the skill of understanding. He sees rabbits there. He sees grass, bushes, and he's holding, of course, a kind of a hammer for his own survival, for his own needs. Then in the second picture, you find his information has been converted to some kind of a knowledge. There is a systematic transformation of that information into given knowledge, because this happens not on one day, but this information has been coming to him over a period of time. And then the knowledge sets in, the knowledge system slowly begins. So what would, between information stage and knowledge, what kind of a reasoning must have happened in the mind of our ancestor? That is, rabbits eat grass. He sees rabbits eating grass. Then grass is growing not on the mountain or in soil. It is not growing anywhere else. Grass growing in soil, and rainfall from clouds. Rain falls from the clouds. Up from the skies, the clouds give way to rain, and the animal, the wolves, they eat up the rabbits and other information. This is the knowledge that he has, and then connects and then comes to a certain kind of a utilitarian insight, which we call as wisdom. So information, knowledge, transforming itself into wisdom for the individual. So what is the reasoning again here? If I kill off all the wolves, the rabbits will eat up the grass. The soil will all wash away. Once the grass is not there, it loosens up the soil, and soil gets washed away. And soil is so essential for everybody's survival, including himself. So he cannot blindly kill all the wolves, because rabbits will eat up the grass. Rabbits also, whereas that balance he has understood. So he doesn't interfere much with that kind of a killing, the habit of killing wolves, which will only result in more rabbits, which will eat up all the grass, and the soil will wither. Some such reasoning would have taken place, and he has allowed some balance to remain. So, what is that information? They say normally, what is the information that is useful if it does not become a knowledge? And what is that knowledge? How is that knowledge useful if it does not give us wisdom? So these three stages are underlying these three stages are the many sub skills we have been talking from the beginning, sub skills related to critical skills, critical thinking skills. In this slide, I wanted to mention you about Edward Glasser, 1941, one of the foremost exponents of critical thinking. He has defined critical thinking as an attitude of being disposed to consider how to tackle problems and subjects that are coming in the way of our experiences. And also, it's a knowledge of the methods of logical inquiry, reasoning, and some skill in applying these methods. Glasser looks at critical thinking as an ability to recognize problems. We can't be blind to problems, knowing that there are problems. We have to acknowledge and face upfront the problems. That happens only when you recognize problems and consequently finding workable means of negotiating these problems. How do you negotiate solutions around these problems? And then gather in important information relating to this problems, and then maybe recognize assumptions that are not made popular, and recognize those unstated assumptions, and then gather this data, comprehend, understand the data, and then come up with evaluating the arguments. So he saw critical thinking as a way of recognizing the existence or the opposite, non-existence of logical relationships between propositions, drawing warranted conclusions and generalizations, and finally putting to test the conclusions and generalizations. So in a way, Glasser was trying to rework the entire concept and gives us these are the salient points in which through which Edward Glasser talks about the concept of critical thinking. By and large, a kind of a retelling of what we have been discussing. Also putting to test the conclusions. Testing the conclusions and generalizations is important because you're also trying to apply things for utilitarian purposes for the benefit of many. Critical thinking, very important, as we mentioned, in all activities, not only academic, but also non-academic, entire life, different aspects, different stages, different levels of living entails critical thinking on the part of the human being. Now, what are some of the activities that deploy? There are many. I've just put down some areas. Chef might use it to modify an existing menu or create a new dish. A chef who is good at cooking, when he's trying to modify an existing menu and creating a new dish, like many of us try this. This is modification is also a sub-skill. When you're trying to change, the sub-skill of creativity, it's a sub-skill of critical thinking. Because you're analyzing, there are a lot of process. There's an entire process that goes behind modification and coming up with a new dish. Then look at the example of a cricket player. He might use to judge an incoming ball or strategize a throw to mislead a batsman.
Cultural madams.
It looks like a very impulsive, instinctive kind of a thing, games. but there is a lot of fast-track critical thinking that happens whenever a player does something on the ground. Then a painter might use it to create concepts, new concepts in canvas. One of the most tangible, immediate fallouts of conceptualizing is that of a painter who comes up with new ideas, new concepts on the canvas. And then the scientist might use it to analyze existing theories and propose new ways of looking at information. So the amalgamation, the synthesis of existing theories, and proposing new ways of understanding these theories in the light of new information, looking to create new information. This is also part of critical thinking. And different cultures use and value different kinds of critical thinking differently. Because cultures also give a certain weightage to different activities. Like many countries would not be comfortable with some games, so they don't get to see critical thinking in those games. Or somebody who is a scientist would not like to look at what a painter has been doing, because we're all exercising critical thinking skills in our own fields, which are again very, very culture specific, which are also culture defined. So in that sense, different cultures use and value differently. I request everybody to switch off their mics. I request Dr.
I request all the, sir, 1 minute. I request all the participants to mute themselves. It's a very serious class. I am extremely sorry. Please mute yourself and join the class. Please mute yourself. Gayatri Ramya, madam. Gayatri Ramya, I repeat. Gayatri Ramya.
Maybe you can mute them from your side. Maybe they don't realize that this is happening. You can
Sir,
mute.
I have given the host seat to you, sir. I cannot do anything, but.
Also, I can mute? Okay, right.
You are the host, sir, right now.
Okay, right. Thank you. I have muted.
Please, sir. Sorry. Extremely sorry.
These things happen.
Okay. Sir.
When we apply critical thinking skills to our blended modes, the skills that we have acquired during COVID time, we're doing these things gradually. We learned many things, and I think slowly we are not so much in touch with the online modes. But yeah, these things happen, yes. Yeah, let me move on to the next slide. Because I mentioned the game there, if you take the popular game of cricket in India, if a team is losing, there is a losing pattern in a couple of matches and a few matches before that. The captain or the manager can go through the following stages of critical thinking. They would have a lot of information. So they need to understand, compare, contrast the trend and the pattern of failure and the pattern of victories of the opponents, then sorting the players in the winning and the losing games, analyzing the order in which the players played. This is how you understand, because that information is there, the data is there. Then you begin to generate certain insights, trying to see which bowling or batting order can win, and analyzing the kinds of pitches or turfs, and inferring if it has any impact on the performance, connecting which player played well in what condition. And then you gain insight and you try out, you benefit from these insights. Then, of course, you also come up with some, draw conclusions or implication, creating a pattern of factors that contribute towards victory or loss. Nobody, of course, contributes to loss, but yes, you can understand a pattern of loss, and you create factors to that contribute towards victory. Applying the analysis to deciding a new batting order, or keeping in mind the field, the bowlers involved, thinking of new patterns of batting and bowling. This is just an explication of the example that I mentioned in the previous slide. You can do it with many others also. Yeah. Now let me bring in Bloom's taxonomy here. I think the top line you're not able to see. Can you see the top line? Yeah, this is the inverted pyramid in the revised version of Bloom's taxonomy. I'm getting Bloom here, Benjamin Bloom, because all the sub-skills he talks about are sub-skills relating to critical thinking. Although he doesn't really highlight the phrase critical thinking, but the sub-skills deals with relate themselves with critical thinking. So you understand, you remember, you analyze, you apply, and then based on those for you up in the pyramid, you create or you evaluate things, concepts. So, and to continue Bloom's thing, this taxonomy, which was originally formulated in 1956 by Benjamin Bloom, who was a psychologist and educationist, was revised in the mid 90s by some of his students. And that is how you saw a very inverted pyramid there. Now, this taxonomy is significant because it deals direct application with education and training. And it is not only just science or any other aspect of life. So all the more it's closer to us. This is commonly a way used to analyze and evaluate concepts, processes, procedures, and the principles. It was further used, taxonomy was used in three major fields of knowledge acquisition, of developing the right attitudes, and developing and enhancing or fine-tuning very, very relevant, appropriate skills. All these form part of Bloom's taxonomy. It was also hierarchical, that's why you saw the pyramid, and assume that one has to move up one after the other. I thought I will mention Bloom's taxonomy because it is steeped in the idea of critical thinking and the sub-skills, various sub-skills that it envisages. Continuing with that, all these I would say activities like listing, paraphrasing, classifying, outline, ranking, categorizing, if you look at them as verbs, words, reproducing, recalling, all these are sub-skills which fall under the broad rubric of critical thinking. If you're dealing with facts, you have to list them, you have to paraphrase in terms of understanding, in terms of remembering, listing. In terms of application, you have to classify them, classify the facts. In terms of analysis, you have to outline them. And then in terms of evaluating, you have to rank them. In terms of creation, you have to categorize. So you see the first, the column there, the first row, remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, create. These are very important, vital sub-skills relating to not only taxonomy, but also critical thinking. And what are the knowledge types in the first column? Not the first row. Knowledge types: facts, concepts, processes, procedures, principles. So depending on this knowledge types, your sub-skills in terms of the Broader skills like under remembering, you have listing, recall, outlining, reproducing, stating. Under understanding, you have explaining, paraphrase, estimate, examples with principles also. Then you have under application, classifying, showing, producing, relating, connecting. And under the subskill of analyzing or analysis, you have outlining, you have contrasting or comparing, representing, identifying, and differentiating. Then under evaluation of rank, criticize. If it is concept, you criticize. If it is a process, you defend, or also you substantiate. Instead of defending, you can also substantiate a process. Then a procedure you can critique, or you can also you can critique objectively, or you can also condemn that procedure. Principle, you can also conclude certain principles. Then under the subskill of creation or creating, you have for facts categorizing, for concepts modifying, for processes you have designing, procedures you plan, and principles you revise. So I thought this was a very holistic way of putting in one view the different sub-skills that form part of taxonomy and that forms part of critical thinking also. So we are all indulging, we are all involving ourselves with some or one or many of these in different combinations, most of the time in non-professional context, also professional, academic, and non-academic context. So it is like, even as you're listening to me, I'm sure you are using. Who is this gentleman? Somewhere you're using these sub-skills falling under the rubric of critical skills, and you're applying these sub-skills, you are benefiting by these sub-skills when you are focusing on different activities, both academic, non-academic, professional, non-professional, study, research, and projects. So for various purposes, we are using these sub-skills either deliberately or by matter of habit, by matter of our own nurturing. We are conditioned to use some skills of critical thinking, some skills of these, some taxonomy skills, which are all very similar. So that's the best fascinating part about critical thinking. So even as you're listening somewhere, you are judging the lecture, you are inferring conclusions, you are guessing, you are also making evaluations. How much of this is useful? How much of it is immediately relevant? So this is happening all the time. This is not one-off thing where only you should see a rabbit or you should see somewhere in the forest. It doesn't happen like it happens all the time. When you don't see anything also, you need to estimate that experience. You need to understand that experience and relate it to your emotion, your well-being, and place it in the scheme of things. So very important set of sub-skills as explicated by Bloom in his taxonomy, and all these are sub-skills of critical thinking. Then I bring in another person, R. Bruce Williams, author and educationist. He popularized this matrix of thinking skills, a framework of thinking skills, which is again very, very similar and highlights the importance with a slight tweak to our understanding. He talks about understanding information. compare, contrast, classify, rank, connect, explain, analyze. All these we have been watching, we have been listening, we have been trying to understand these sub-skills as part of understanding information. As part of generating insights, evaluating, judging, visualizing and imaging is something that he speaks as very much part of. Williams talks about they being part of thinking skills. Although we would like to visualizing and imaging as part of our imagination skills, they are all very closely connected with our thought process. You imagine when there is a certain thought that triggers the imagination, and you imagine in the form of images, in the form of certain visuals. So visualizing, imaging, very vital for generating insights. And then finding relationships between concepts, and then make some inferences, make analogies, comparisons, or finding similarities across time and space. All these will help us generate insights. Then how do you come up with implications, discerning implications? When you, it speaks about, Williams speaks about application, creation, innovating, inventing, generalizing, sequencing, predicting, transferring. I was just, in my explanation, I used the word guessing. Predicting, guessing are also part of these important cognitive skills, which are so much triggered by our laboring through the sub skills of critical thinking. You begin to sequence, you begin to predict, you begin to transfer knowledge, you begin to guess at some insights. So these are all implications. So this is Bruce Williams' framework, matrix of thinking skills. Then there's a very general popular concept called reflexive thinking. Reflexive thinking is to be differentiated from reflection or reflective thinking. Reflective is when you're thinking about other things outside of you. Reflexive is self-reflexive. A very important part of qualitative research lies with reflexive thinking that we do. Why does it contribute qualitatively to our research? Because it involves understanding of our own thinking process. That's why in the beginning that quote talks about critical thinking is bringing in rationality, objectivity towards itself, towards your own thinking process. Also, a process of understanding one's feelings. How do you understand your emotions? How do you understand your feelings? Do emotions get the better of you? Then obviously you have not brought in critical thinking. Do emotions, do they stay under your observation? Does your feelings, do they stay within your observation, within your overseeing? That happens through critical thinking. Acknowledging the baggage of assumptions and ideological bias one might have. We all come with certain baggage of assumptions. We all have certain, as I mentioned a couple of times in the beginning, we have ideological predilections, we have biases, we have prejudices. So we should be aware of this. You should be aware of your own leanings. This is reflexive thinking. Reflexive thinking also includes understanding how knowledge about yourself might influence your judgment and your analysis. The link between what you consist of and how you judge things, how you analyze things. Then, of course, it also consists of reevaluating one's own findings, feelings, and judgment. So, slightly resetting your feelings, resetting your emotions, resetting your findings and judgment This is also part of reflexive thinking. And this reflexive thinking will feed into your own fresh kind of thinking and feeling. So reflexive thinking on the whole forms very much part of the larger idea, the larger activity of critical thinking that we all are endowed with. We are all endowed with the critical thinking faculty. We have developed it over a period of time. We are not just impulsive beings who allow emotions or prejudices to take the better of us. Now, as part of reflexive thinking, I thought I'll share this picture with you. This small bird here, a small kestrel, tried to steal dinner from a big one, haddock, and took a risk. The risk I took was calculated, but it realizes, but man, am I bad at maths? So it realizes its limitations when it comes to understanding mathematics, calculations, sizes. So this is reflexive thinking. Then based on whatever we have been discussing, we can look at some of the factors while we are working on a project as a scientist or as a researcher, as a teacher also. We need to think of the purpose. Why is this project or field of study being developed? The justification. Who is the beneficiary? Who is it? What are the implications? What are the market opportunities for a particular design or for a particular project, for a particular research work? And what are the available technologies that can support this purpose of yours? And then the points of view. What are the other points of view that need consideration? What are there sensitive socio-cultural facts that need consideration? Socio-cultural facts are a matter of sensitivity. So when you are sensitive to these socio-cultural facts, then you will also accommodate other points of view. And it becomes very much essential for your thinking process. And the assumptions, of course. What are the assumptions being made about the usefulness of the project? Availability of materials and skills, environmental risks, marketability. These days, we're talking about the green culture, the eco habits, the green habits. So all these are part of larger considerations, and we have to look at these assumptions. And the available information already pre-existing. What is the amount of information available about the above concerns? What is the source of information? Have all the relevant sources been tapped, and is information free of biases? So these are thinking factors which form very much, which play a very big role before a project, before you begin a field of study, and very much part of your critical thinking apparatus. Another picture I would like to show is a humorous one about Einstein trying to do something there on the board. And so that would make my second cousin once removed, the great aunt of my first cousin twice removed. No, wait, that can't be right. Why Einstein quickly moved on to general relativity. So this is when you know that certain kind of calculation is not going to work. Einstein somewhere talks about the fusion of rationality, reasoning, and the fusion of creativity. Creative impulse and long process of critical thinking together gave him insights on many things. This is just a humorous slide I wanted to share. Now, another important thinker, Tony Buzan, highlighted, popularized mind mapping as a technique, as a graphic technique, which imitates the architecture of the human brain cell, wherein he talks about very crucial thought generating techniques. First, an idea started by Tony Buzan, an English psychologist and educational consultant. It's a brilliant way, mind mapping is a brilliant way to organize thoughts and recall and analyze information critically and critically. So in this technique of mind mapping, when you're organizing thoughts that are flashing across your mind, you are using a graphic technique. You're putting it down on the paper with a pen or pencil. And there's a way to do that. You put the concept in the center of the page and you draw curvilinear lines and start registering these different thoughts around that central topic. You get a lot of ideas because Tony Buzan thought that mind mapping allows a free play of both your left brain and your right brain. Doesn't make you hinged, make you limited, and wherein you only think of rationality. So while trying to talk about the fusion of creativity and criticality, mind mapping is a brilliant way to generate thoughts, to organize thoughts, and to analyze. There are plenty of websites about mind mapping. You can, I'm sure most of you have seen this. So it is a graphic technique for representing ideas on any topic, gathering existing ideas, connecting existing ideas, understanding complicated systems. When things are difficult to understand, mind maps help us to deal with our own thinking and remembering process. So mind mapping as a technique allows you to create new ideas. As a technique, it helps us cope with our critical thinking skills, where you're finding it difficult to comprehend something. Then the mind map helps you to understand it better. And then you are able to do every other sub-skill better, like gathering, connecting, and creating new ideas. So strongly recommended that mind mapping as a technique, as a graphic technique, to be used by all of us, and also to tell our students also, because it is one technique which is very, very conducive to generate not only rational, critical ideas, but also creative ideas. And nothing is more ideal than a good fusion between rationality and creativity. This is again a slide I wanted to share. According to this X-ray, it appears that you have broken your leg as a result of jumping to conclusions. So highlighting, it's a play on the words jumping to conclusions, and the word jumping itself. Jumping is implies that you are missed out certain other processes, certain other rational processes of understanding, of discussion, of analyzing. So you directly, as you experience, you come to a certain conclusion that can be misleading, that can result in wrong understanding of things. Process may be fast, but it should never be a jumpy process. Now I'll talk about certain language competencies because we are also trying to link up critical thinking with language research. Here I would like to mention about Canal and Swain, Michael Swain, and also Merrill Canal. Is in their 1980 book, Theoretical Basis for Communicative Approaches to Second Language Teaching and Testing, speak about different competencies. Yeah, first, if you take grammatical competence would entail skills of understanding and skills, the power of remembering. Very important for critical thinking. Knowledge of grammatical rules or target language. Also, you need to generate a structural syllabus if you are looking at promoting grammatical competence. So you have to design that. Then you have to teach. The methods of teaching would be the traditional grammar translation method or a direct method where there is so much control over the students. And the syllabus can be seen as a product-oriented one, which has gone through the process of understanding and also presentation, remembering and presentation. So to promote understanding, you need to give understanding, and to make them remember that, you need to give them proper presentation of items like tenses, prepositions, etc. So this is one competence. Then they also talk about social linguistic competence, wherein the skills of analysis and application come into play, analyzing and applying, because you're dealing with the entire gamut of socio-linguistic, the interaction between language and society, and how you develop acceptable competence in a socio-linguistic situation. Knowledge of social adequacy, rules of language use, appropriate social use of language. That is very important. Not just the rules of language use. That gives you social linguistic competence. Syllabus, functional syllabus types. The functional syllabus comes under this competence. You have to design a functional syllabus. Not much reliance on form and structure, but also on the way these language functions in real social situations, and teaching of everyday real world language. And methods, again, a direct method, but you can also have situational language teaching, communicative language teaching in a milder way. Then again, product-oriented syllabus based on specific needs of learner, agreeing, disagreeing, apologizing, requesting. All different situations in life context, and you can produce a syllabus. We have so much, people have produced syllabus based on these functions, the social linguistic functions. Then they also mentioned about strategic competence, creating and evaluating. I'll just take another 4 or 5 minutes, and then I leave the house open for any queries or discussion. Strategic competence involving skills of evaluating and creating. Knowledge of verbal and non-verbal communication, the body language, strategies, alignment of verbal and non-verbal communication. There has to be a synchronization, and the multimodal you use, generally it's a mixed code, not only in terms of mixed languages, but also in terms of gestural as well as verbal mix. Communication, repair, and problem solving. There are going to be communication breakdowns when you don't use language appropriately, and you need to solve them through a strategy change. Then it involves the designing of a communicative syllabus, and the methods under this to promote strategic competence among learners would be communicative teaching methods like group discussions, the strong version of communicative methods, group discussions, role plays, and also what Prabhu's popularized as information gap exercises, the reasoning gap and opinion gap activities. And this is a process-oriented learning. Even as you are learning, there's an entire process-oriented syllabus also has to be made, because communicative syllabus is process-oriented syllabus, involving understanding and analysis along with evaluation and creativity. Now, having highlighted certain competencies which are very essential for us teachers and also for our learners, so that we'll be able to deal with their requirements. I'm also thinking of certain research areas. There are so many research areas in language. I've just highlighted 5 here. The first one is about around the impact of learners possessing a prior set of soft skills, and how such learners, when they're trying to acquire more proficiency in LSRW, what is the impact? Does it make a difference having pre-given soft skills before you start acquiring LSRW skills? That's the idea. Then if somebody is undertaking a study of different methods of teaching languages or any other subject, followed by different boards of education, that can be a good comparative study. First one can be a kind of an assessment, can be an overall understanding of a linkage, how you relate soft skills, naturally equipped soft skills with what is going to be required. Then look at a third possible topic, use of storytelling strategies for facilitating language proficiency among tribal learners. If you're trying to enhance the proficiency of tribal learners at the UG or at a different level, or even +2 or school level, storytelling strategies are seen as very effective. So it's a relational, you're trying to link between storytelling strategies and their impact on how you teach tribal learners more effectively, and how they also will feel more motivated because of these strategies. Then use of bilingual education in the late 19th century in many parts of India, the introduction of English, what was the balance between the local language, the indigenous languages, and newly come English? How was the bilingual education? How did it play out? That can be a good historical research involving recall, study of documents, archival research, and a lot of analysis and inferences that you can make. Then another topic which I have taken here is designing instruments to assess and match learners' innate skills to prospective avenues of career in terms of guiding them towards proper, appropriate, more suitable careers. So in topics like this around the language research, critical thinking on the part of the researcher plays a very important, of the person doing these, involving in these fields of study is very important, because many sub-skills of critical thinking like inferencing, comparing, contrasting, reflecting, applying, and also drawing conclusions, they come into play while pursuing research studies. Yeah, thank you. And I leave it there for the house. Dr. Neela, we have 15 minutes more.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And
yeah, it's open for the house. If you come on there, I think now, can I do open, unmute everybody?
right now, may I take this
Yeah, please take over the
as
rights.
a privilege to thank you,
Please do.
Dr. Murali Krishna garu, for the gripping of things and with clarity of thoughts and presenting it the best possible way. And beyond that, what is that I'm happy that I hope that most of us are happy is possible areas for language research. And we are sometimes in a context cluttered in between what to do, what not to do. Shall we take it or shall we not take it? So in that context, we talked about critical thinking, how best it's going to help us in taking our research forward. When you talked about taking our class forward when it comes to assessment and classwork and other things. And I'm happy that I have you today, sir. Thank you so much for accepting me, and namaste. And I hope that you will be joining us some other time physically here on campus, so that we can have a one-to-one talk with and how my faculty and my staff member will be taking maximum benefit of your expertise and interest. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback. Should I leave now or should I take any questions? You already said.
Thank you, sir. The next session will be starting at 1:30. And I request all of you to be there sharp on 1:30.
Neela, Dr. Neela, can you hear me? Dr. Neela, can you hear me?
If anybody has any question, you can write down there in the chat box, or else you can unmute yourself and directly ask Professor Murali Krishna Garu.
We have 45 participants here on the platform. I'm sure at least a couple of you will have something to ask or interact. I don't think, yeah, even the chat, we are not getting anything. There are some messages here, messages of some feedback, but I think we can now stop there, because if there were questions they would have asked by this time. Doctor.
Okay, thank you, sir. Namaste.
Thank you all. Bye.
Shall I end the session?